Hello, hello, hello. We are making a video. The beautiful being there and I together forever. He is sexy, he looks naked because he is almost naked. See, you can see he has almost no hair at all. This is the shortest velveteen, the velveteen peachy skin I have ever seen on a dog. From any dog I have ever met, this is the most naked being I have ever seen. And that is nice. Yes, that is nice. So, today is December 6th, 2025, and it is Saint Nikolaus Day today. I like my artwork. It's very nice. It's very nice, my artwork. Very nice. More and more and more artwork is decorating the walls. More and more and more and more. And then on this big wall here, this is a very large wall here. That has to be cleaned with vinegar, and then I have to hang my painting Together Forever, which is at the other house, with the Papa dog, Kenny, Nicola, and Paul in the painting, which I made a while back, several years ago. Time goes by. I just saw last night. I found some old videos that I had made 4 years ago and even 11 years ago. Oh my gosh, 11 years ago? My eyebrows were this wide. And you don't even recognize me. Oh my gosh. That's why people thought they didn't know what I was in school. They thought I was a Turkish brat. That's what they called me. The fat Turkish brat, they called me. But I'm not Turkish, so that didn't show up in the DNA result. But I mean, all kinds of other Italian, Spanish, Pacific Islander, but a very small amount. And then you don't know what else, So the Germans are not like they're not the tall, pure Nordics. So some of them are, but most of them weren't even when I was going to school there. And today it's a complete melting pot. Today they all look Middle Eastern now today, but really Middle Eastern, like really. They all have dark skin now, and so I don't have dark skin, but I had very dark brown hair. This is slightly red, so like a burgundy, but yeah, sort of burgundy brown. And the eyebrows were also dark red, burgundy brown, and wide. Not unibrow. They started here and then like this here. Like real dark. And then the hair, oh my gosh. But I had to have the hair like this. I have no other choice. So for practical reasons, I like this. I don't like hair in my eyes. I can't stand it. Constantly, like, no, I don't like that. And then also half curls, waves, sideways antenna, inward antenna that stab me right into the iris. No, I'm not okay with that. No. So my hair is now light blue. It's the original hair color because I'm getting older. That's why. So old ladies with light blue hair, and then I put hydrogen peroxide into it, which makes it light green. Yeah, this is how it works. But my hair used to be burgundy, almost like this here there. But a little bit more brown, sort of. More like, sort of like that there. Yeah. Yeah, that is what it is, and there's nothing I can do about it. In the past, I used to feel bad about my hair and my eye color because most of the other girls had blue eyes and more like this color here, which is bleach, of course, but they had this hair color here in natural, and I was jealous as usual. So I grew up with jealousy. It's not fun. It's not fun. But when you do meditation and inwardness and you cry it all out, then you can suddenly see the whole picture, and there's no problem with any of that anymore. If you have curly hair and dark hair, or if you have some Middle Eastern, or you have some Pacific Islander, or some Nigerian or Sierra Leonean, which I might have, I don't know 100% sure, because that would probably not fit into that's not in the detection range. So the detection range starts at 99%. So anything under 1%, the last 1%, becomes a little blurry, but it says less than 1% Pacific Islander. That's what it said. So I believe it. Okay, so but then if there's something else that may be 0.05%, something like that, that wouldn't be mentioned. So, but it would be interesting if they can go zoom in a little bit more, and maybe they can see what's under the 0.1%, and then what's going on there. Maybe there is something else in there from all the way around the globe. But I don't have Asian, so I don't have the slanted eye Oriental DNA. I believe that's an extraterrestrial lineage. That is a very specific extraterrestrial lineage. Is the Asian ET ship that came down there with maybe 100 people, and they colonized and they gene spliced, and that's where I think the Oriental people are coming from, and I don't have that. I have a little bit of the original Asian Neanderthal, but that has nothing to do with the slanted eye people. So it's very interesting, all of this. So we have proof for all of that, but I guess people didn't connect the dots with that. So you can see there is a tribe in Japan that has not mixed with the other ones, and the other ones haven't mixed with that tribe. And the tribes, they stuck to themselves with their very strange habits and all of that. And these people are very intelligent too, so but they didn't intermix. Some of them did, and but then the ones that intermixed, they went into the oriental looking regions. The ones that didn't intermix, they stayed with that tribe. And there's a northern Japanese tribe, and they come from the original Asian Neanderthal. And many of us have that Asian Neanderthal mixed into us as well as the European Neanderthal, which was taller and lankier, and the Asian Neanderthal was shorter and more condensed, more with shorter legs and stuff. So, and longer back. So that's what I think. I have both Neanderthal people in me, a small percentage, but I think about 4% would be interesting. I didn't do a test for that. I would like to do a test for that, to see what comes out. So, this is highly interesting, all of that. So that tribe is called the Ainu. That is the northern Japanese tribe. That's an original tribe. That's a tribe that did not venture out. They settled there at some point, and they stayed there like a last pocket of a nomadic tribe that has wandered across Asia, and they are related, of course, to the Asian Neanderthal, and they have not mixed in with the Oriental astronauts that landed there. Maybe they landed there 1 million years ago. That could have been a long time ago. They had technology way advanced from what the ape humans at that time, all the way around the globe, had. Okay. So that was the time when the ape humans were using very primitive tools still, yet. They did some cave paintings, but they didn't even have language. And then when the ETs came, they introduced the language. They introduced the symbols and all of that. They taught them, actually. And the ape humans worshipped these gods. Okay, so that's where all of that comes from. Nothing is mysterious, really, if you really look at it with an open mind and you really ask questions. Then you find out that there is no mystery in the world. It can all be researched. It can all be found out. The truths can all be sorted out. Why do most people have this, or had, maybe it's shifting now, but most people had this, it's a psychological shame. It's this terrible, most people had this deep-rooted shame and taboo of ever thinking that this planet could have been visited by extraterrestrial astronauts, right, with ships and vimanas. So it was like a taboo for 1,000 years or longer. This taboo, like, people will be condemned as crazy for speculating, for even asking questions. So that makes you want to think, why is that? Why this taboo? Right? Who created this taboo? You're allowed to research, but only up to here. Then it's taboo. Why? Okay. What 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 dictated this limit of research? Who dictated that limit? So there are probably some people, I call them, that don't want the average person to think about it or find out or look into it. It's been going on for a very long time. So it's finally, this taboo is finally lifting. Finally. Because too many people have witnessed encounters. They have witnessed strange things. Too many people. People that are not crazy. People that are not on LSD. People that are not mentally ill in any way. People that are very reason-based have witnessed things. Most of them felt this taboo. They were intimidated by that shame. Mind control. But some of them have come forward with it. And they said, what the heck, I'm just going to talk about it. Let them shame me. Okay. Those are the brave ones. Those are the ones that put truth above their own reputation. Okay, so I believe the Ainu were the original people that came from the Asian Neanderthal. Okay, last pocket in Japan. They're kind of isolated there, away from the rest of the mainland. And then the Oriental Asians from the ETs, the ones that come from the lineage of their Adam and Eve, their first gene spliced hybrids. Okay. They migrated all over and then into Japan, and they found this last tribe there that didn't have the slanted and squinty eyes. So, and they didn't want to mix with them. They left them alone. They were actually afraid of them. And the reason why they were afraid of them, and I think that's why the Ainu did this, what they did. The Ainu women, they painted red clay on their lips, like lipstick, sort of, but they made the mouth really big and it would go up here, like into a smile, into a weird smile. And I wonder if they did that to scare away the other people, the other tribes that were coming in there. I wonder if they did that. Because it worked. Okay, so I think that scared the hybrids, and they left them alone. And so that's why that kept on perpetuating itself, this last pocket. It kept itself isolated genetically because they made themselves look weird and scary. So it's just a hypothesis, but it makes a lot of sense. So that happened a lot also between tribes. That happened a lot throughout history, where one tribe would make themselves look scary to the other one, just out of fear in order to protect themselves. I mean, this is even genetic, something like this. That happens among animals. They make themselves look taller than they are, and the hair stands up on end. I don't have much hair, but hair stands up on end in some animals, which makes them look taller, and that happens when they're afraid. It's more, that's a cellular reaction, okay, not a cognitive reaction. So, but anything from cognitive to cellular reactions that can cause these type of scare tactics. But I think very interesting. So I talked about this before. I had a dream, and I had dreams about ETs, and I saw I saw an Oriental ET in the formation of a blanket, of a baby blanket, and it showed itself through that. Beings show themselves through things. It's a form of language. Okay, they're entities that are disembodied, that can speak to us through pattern formation. And you think the pattern formation is random because of the way you shoveled something. But just that the way you shoveled something could have also been some kind of, maybe they wished my hand into moving this, or the world of the ether is very, 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 very wild, and just the law of attraction comes from the ether. So they may have wished for showing themselves, or they have a technology of they have very advanced minds where they can telepathically communicate, but even more so, they can create a formation that then shows that other person, the receiver of the message, a formation in so-called random pattern formation, like a blanket that is, you think it's just randomly shoveled, but it was wished into this formation by the entity in order to show me. So that's what I perceived in this. And I saw an ET. I saw the Oriental ET. That, and I painted that later. I had to. I had no other choice. I painted it. I showed it once in a video. And I have the other drawing at the other house. That the other drawing's even better. I made that drawing with a green ball pen, light green ball pen, the perfect color for that. And who knows, they might even be green. So, and the eyes, they're not just like Oriental people's eyes. The eyes were more exaggerated even. The eyes were literally like this. Like this. An eye shape, elongated, but in a completely different angle. In an angle that was almost vertically up. Okay? And highly slanted. And going way up. Longer eye. Like this. Way up like this. For us, almost inconceivable, kind of scary looking, actually. But interesting, fascinating. Eyes that go like this. And the nose, not the narrow bridge, wide bridge of a nose, that goes in and up like a ski slope like this, and way up into the sky, like this. Makes a U-turn here, like this. And then a pointy tip, and then comes back. and this part here comes back down, and the nostrils in there. Okay. So I didn't pay attention to the nostrils very much, and the mouse was a white mouse, but kind of like, I don't know how to describe it. A white mouse with pretty white lips, but not bulgy lips. Okay, kind of like this here, sort of, and oval, rounded face with an enormous forehead. Really, really, really big, like this. Huge. Goes way out like this, and up also. So the head taller than the actual face. Cylindrical almost. Why do you think that a lot of priests and religious, so-called religious, the religious people that claim to be in touch with the quantum and the ether, so why do you think they wear these tall hats? Yeah. They want to make their head look big, because that's what people worshipped. Why did they worship that? Because they worshipped these ETs that came here to visit us with these big heads. And people recognized that big head must be equal to big intelligence. And it is, okay? And so they worshipped them. Like many people worship Elon Musk, okay, for having just an enormous brain. Okay? Enormous. And he probably has a high percentage of Pleiadian. Okay, so those were the original ET, or the Oriental Asian astronauts, maybe 1,000,000 years ago. They gene spliced, and then the hybrids colonized. The Ainu are the originals, and the people in Europe have both Asian Neanderthal and European Neanderthal, but of course a small percentage, because there were, if we want to call them African Neanderthals, okay, but they don't call them Neanderthals. They call them Cro-Magnon, the ones that came from Africa and the Middle East. So from the equator, there were tribes that evolved, and they split off from Europe long time ago, went into Africa, they evolved there, then they came back together. They came back to France. There are cave paintings that depict this story. And they were better with their killing craft, okay, and they killed the male Neanderthals, and they took their women. So that's why we have Neanderthal, but only a small percentage. We mainly have the Cro-Magnon that comes from the equator, from Africa and the Middle East, long time ago. Okay, so, and this is all very tragic what happened there. And we also have the Asian Neanderthal. And these Cro-Magnon, they were faster, and they had longer spears that would projectile farther out, and were able to kill the other ones from a longer distance, while the other ones, the Neanderthals, didn't have this spear technology. They didn't have the long spears, and they were more peaceful also. They were smarter also, the Neanderthals, and they were not so bellicose, so violent, and they didn't have the narrow long spears, and because of that their spears didn't reach far enough to protect themselves from the other. So the other killed the male, very more clumsy figured European ape people at that time. So that is already pretty researched now, this history about it. And then the Cro-Magnon were darker skinned. They mixed that in with the Neanderthal and with the European Neanderthal. And then, even though they had 90% or 80% at that time, they had 80% Cro-Magnon and much larger percentage of Neanderthal at that time than we have now, of course. But they were, if you have 80% Cro-Magnon was dark-skinned and 20% European Neanderthal that was light-skinned with blue eyes and blonde hair, when you mix that, the outcome is a darker skin than the original Europeans then later had. And the reason why the Europeans with that darker skin that started out with the Cro-Magnon mixed in to a large percentage, and they stayed there in Europe, then their skin got lighter again in time, over time, because, and the eye color got lighter because they didn't have as much sunlight, and the skin needed to absorb more sunlight, and the eyes too, and the hair was lighter also because of that, because they needed to absorb more sunlight. It evolved then again into that, while the ones that stayed at the equator, they got even darker skin. So, and people need to research, people need to learn about all of this and stop this dualism between the different ethnic groups. Just don't do it anymore. They are like this, you are like that, another one is different than that. It's interesting, it's wonderful, they're all beautiful, okay? Everyone is equally beautiful. Some are more violent, okay? That's not good, okay? That needs to be healed. And it can be healed. No one has the right to crash an airplane because they are suicidal. So no one has the right to do it. So I'm not showing you. Okay. No one has the right to destroy someone else's property or threaten their lives. No one has the right to murder anyone. Okay. That's a fact. Okay. It doesn't matter whether that person, that violent person, is totally crazy and mentally ill and has ancestral wounds and has the DNA that's violent and has a violent brain formation and all of that. Okay, it doesn't matter any of these things that lawyers sometimes use. Oh, reason of insanity, something like that. None of that holds up. Okay, none of that. Oh, it's his DNA. It doesn't hold up. If someone is violent, it's not okay. That cannot be tolerated. Should not be tolerated by anyone, ever, ever. So, and that's why Pete Hegseth is bombing these drug ships, because the drug ships are the real murderers. The drug ship people are the real murderers. You can say, oh, well, there are some fishermen on the... They know what they're doing, these fishermen. They know they're going on that drug boat. And if there are some people that don't know anything what's going on, if there are some so-called casualties, or then that's tragic. But we cannot have drug boats dock on shore for North America and bring killer drugs that destroy children's lives. Okay, we cannot tolerate this. Okay? Just want to make this very crystal clear here. Very crystal clear. This needs to be understood. Okay? Ethics needs to be understood. If a mother defends her child and uses lethal force to defend her child against a violent attacker, then you don't have the right to say that poor violent attacker. I've never seen this in my life. That mother attacking that poor violent attacker who would have killed her child, right? No, she did what she had to do to protect her child. And Pete Hegseth has to do these drastic actions to protect our children here in the United States. Okay, so I don't need to talk endlessly about it. Okay. I made this very crystal clear with that statement. This statement holds up in court. Okay, this is rock solid. So any of these other excuses and all that doesn't hold up. Woke stuff doesn't hold up. Okay, we have to protect our children. We have to protect the innocents. That's a fact. Okay, so now let's drive from China, where I think the Oriental ETs docked on with their spaceship 1 million years ago. I'm guessing now on the time, but a long time ago. Let's go there and fly from there halfway around the globe to the Arctic Circle. And I don't know if they went there, the Oriental ETs, they went there because that was the right climate for them. They checked everything out already beforehand. So all the ETs, the different looking ETs that came to Earth, they checked everything out first. They probably flew all the way around and into circles and checked everything out, all the different climate zones, and they landed where they thought this was the best climate zone for them. So the Oriental ETs landed in China. That was the best climate zone for them. And also mineral-wise, for mining, that is what they needed, specific minerals there. And so halfway around the globe, in the Arctic Circle, there were different ETs that landed there, also a long time ago. Those are the ones, those are my ancestors. Those are the Pleiadians, okay? Those are, and some of them are even more exaggerated. The tall Nordics, or the tall whites, okay? They also came there, I think, to the Arctic Circle. And I don't know if the Pleiadians are related to the tall Nordics, but maybe there are two different types, but they both come from planets where they had it very cold, or how they evolved was very cold. I'm speculating, but this makes sense to me. So I'm just trying to connect the dots here with that. So the Pleiadian ET colony, or spaceship colony, I don't know, of 100 people, I'm guessing, would land in, let's say, Lapland, okay, in the Arctic Circle. And they also did the Garden Eden project, because if they didn't, they would die out, they would become extinct. And every biological being has an inbuilt need for proliferation. So if they don't naturally proliferate, if they try to mate with the ape humans, nothing comes out of it, because they're two separate species, of course. They're not just two separate species. They're like completely unrelated. Like totally, right? The Pleiadians, they come there, the ETs, and they find a European Neanderthal, and that Neanderthal is also pretty hardy in the cold, but they are not related at all, right? So the ETs are taller and skinnier, and totally different DNA. But it's interesting that they have a DNA like we have. All of this is so interesting. I mean, that makes you wonder, like, how did this form? This is so interesting. I don't have the answers for all of this. So they have DNA, but I think they have more complex DNA, more complex double helix. But I think this is how life evolves. Even if on two separate planets that have never crossed paths, and probably on endlessly many more planets happening the same thing, the same biological evolution, slightly different in looks and maybe in size and in helix complexity, maybe with more amino acids, maybe with 10 different amino acids instead of 4 that we have. So, but it evolves in this direction, because that's the cause and effect. That's the natural draw of cause and effect and trial and error that over time evolves into complex animals, and eventually into bipedal hominid type of animals with a large brain and with a hand similar to this shape, because this hand shape is the practical hand shape that, as you see, you can grab things, and you can grab minute things, and you can craft minutest things. So, and then the craft evolved with the skills, with the research, and then you get technology at some point. Okay, so, and these Pleiadians, they had gone through a much, much, much farther evolution than we are at right now. this stage. But they mixed in, they did Garden Eden project, just as the Bible talks about. But the Bible, of course, it has these bits and pieces of stuff that seems weird if you really look at it, okay? But then you have to ask the question now, what was this actually, the Garden Eden project? Was this some mythology? Was this some magical thing? No, it wasn't. It was a very rock solid, hands-on, real thing, okay? These gods and angels were ETs, and people worshipped them. They looked amazing. They were so tall and so shiny and so blonde and with silvery clothes on, and just amazing, right? They glowed. They had a halo, maybe from the technology that they developed, and maybe also from being very high vibrational, okay, like a halo of blue light around them. And that was depicted by artists, and you wonder, what is this halo actually? Where does that come from? Ask the question. Don't be stuck with some religious dogmatism that doesn't ask questions. You have to ask questions. You must ask questions to free yourself psychologically and to help the world free themselves, and to encourage other people to ask questions, because when we ask questions, we empower ourselves. That's what science is all about, asking questions and never stopping. You never stop asking questions. That is the beauty of real science. Real science, not the one that puts a cap on it. That's not real science. Not the scientific community that laughs about someone who asks further questions, who probes further. Laughing about that. That's not... Laughing about someone is not real science, okay? Real science is to take what someone else is saying into account and say, okay, so this is interesting, let's find out if you're right. Let's find out, let's look into this. Not right off the bat dismiss someone or someone's eyewitness account, but listen and put it into a documentation. Document everything and keep researching and connect the dots. Take out the documents again. Compare them. Create a larger picture of it. If you need to, you have to use a large wall, and you put all the bits and pieces of information, you pin it on that wall, and you create an entire network of information. That's how we move forward, okay? Not by putting your scholarship or your research fund above finding the truth, okay? So, yeah, people take bribe money, research fund to shut up, okay? So, because there is a group of people with certain DNA that has been running the overland civilization of humans, okay? And they don't want people to go into that. They don't want people to probe, because they want people to be dependent on them. If people find out too much, then whoever is probing further, like Elon Musk, these people make themselves become a target. They make themselves become someone who is being monitored, who's being surveilled by this underworld of dictators. So, and this underworld of dictators is very, very real, and it makes a lot of sense to me. Okay, there's an entire underworld, and where have those people evolved from? I believe they evolved from a dinosaur. That's what I believe. Yeah, reality. You will find out later on if you live long enough. Things will come to the surface. And I don't hate them. They evolved that way. They evolved with greed. Okay? They have a reptile brain. A reptile doesn't think that far into, oh, I need to protect that other fish or whatever. No. They eat that fish. Okay? They hunt the other animal. They will eat another little animal alive. Okay, and that's evolution on Earth. And the real smart dinosaur, there was a bipedal dinosaur that was kind of like an ostrich, but they don't know if it had feathers or hair. I can't tell now because they find fossils from those. But oversized brain. Like, whoa! What's going on there? Okay, all of a sudden they find this in a specific time frame, like Cambrian or Jurassic. I forgot now which one it was. There were all kinds of other animals that were not as smart, and suddenly they find one that's way more evolved among all of the other ones. So obviously, those have hunting skills that exceed the other ones by far. They may even have started to use tools also, just like the ape human at some point started to use tools. Dinosaurs started to use tools. Why not? Okay, same evolutionary development. Doesn't matter whether it's an egg-laying species or a placenta birth, right? So this is also an egg. We evolved from the reptiles, okay? But mammals, or early mammals, were already, they find fossil remains that point to the fact that early mammals have already evolved much longer before people assumed. So much before the meteorites hit the Earth. And there may have already been larger mammals or larger marsupial type of mammals that all became extinct through the meteorite shower, to all of these comets and meteors that were raining down on Earth. The tiny ones, the little mouse type of mammals, they survived because they were able to retreat into caves and into cave systems that protected them. So that was a niche, a survival niche. But the smart dinosaurs, the bipedal one, I cannot remember that name of that dinosaur, Archaeopteryx or something like this, with the extra Archaeopteryx doppel brain. So those, they were smart enough when they saw the meteors coming down. They were smart enough to assess everything, and they knew how to. They actually dug themselves a cave. They dug themselves cave tunnels and stuff like this. They went underground. systematically, not just through trial and error, they systematically dug underground tunnels, and then those are the ones that evolved into the reptiles and into this incredibly evolved underground cave tunnel network that is out of sight from the overland civilization. So, but people are finding things, people are digging things up. Gradually, more and more and more will come to the surface. And people will go in there and they will find it. They'll find more and more and more. And there was one guy that was digging a tunnel somewhere. And there was a blind woman. Baba, I think her name was Baba Vanga, in somewhere in the like Yugoslavia or Slovakia, I think it's Slovakia. And she encouraged him, and she said she was a psychic, and she told him, you are on the right path, keep digging. You will eventually find a tunnel that has been dug from another point, from another place, that has been dug deep into there, but not connected to that area, but coming from another place, like Middle East, right? Where these underground reptiles dug tunnels that reached underground all the way to Slovakia. And this one guy, he just kept on digging, and Baba Vanga told him, keep on digging, you haven't found it yet. And he eventually found it. And there was a grave. Just like we have graves and we have, some people embalm corpses. Some people have these ceremonies. Same with the reptiles. They have ceremonies too, like this. When someone was like a dignitary or someone very, very highly regarded person or a king or something, then he would get this very specific burial and embalmment, and so this guy finds this reptile, embalmed reptile there at the end, finally, at the end of his tunnel that broke through to an entire tunnel system that would reach for hundreds and hundreds of miles, hundreds of thousands of miles towards the Middle East and farther, and probably into Asia. And so he found this, and he was way in, like couple miles into this tunnel system. He finds this reptile, embalmed reptile looking being, dead corpse there, that was obviously a very highly regarded person that had been embalmed and almost like indefinitely preserved, like a mummification. And I mean, he couldn't believe his eyes. He was so shocked about this, with the protruded mouth and a nose that was just had nostrils and scaly skin and all of that. Large brain, real large brain, bipedal, hominid. He went back out. He told people about it. He didn't tell enough people. He didn't blast it out. So the underworld people found out that he found that, and they silenced him very quickly. I don't know how they silenced him. I hope they didn't kill him, but But that's how they function. They kill people in order to silence them all the time. And some people were interested, but then the Slovakian government also, of course, paid and collaborating with the reptiles. They would close that up again. They would shut down the entire tunnel that he had built and boulder that entire thing up, so that no one else was going in there to find that, and maybe even bring it out to the surface in Slovakia, because then they can't deny it anymore. They see it. Then people would do DNA tests on it. This Brian Forster, he did research on the Paracas skulls. He found elongated skulls in Peru and in a totally different region on Earth. Okay, yeah, okay. Yes, come on now, this is so incredibly ridiculous. You cannot even use your voice, right? Not even that. So I can't even... My voice could be... I am a Russian spy. My voice could be in that video. And then what? Someone could say, I recognize that voice. That is a comrade of epic proportions. That's so irritating. That's so incredibly irritating. Just clap his hands, real angry, so that I don't shine the camera at him. That makes me mad. It's ridiculous. This is mental illness. I have no tolerance for that. Yes, Vedak, I love you so infinitely much. Yes, so infinite. I have to move this here. Yes, oh yeah. Yes, look at that beautiful, beautiful dog. He would never do that, what Paul does. He welcomes the video and he doesn't mind. Either way, he doesn't mind. He just wanna rest there in peace. He doesn't want drama or anything, doesn't want to be on social media. But even if he's on social media, he doesn't get bombarded like people do. So people say, oh, that's another dog. But if they see a person with bangs, then they come after them. So a dog with bangs, they would not come after them. They would just... whoever did that to the dog, they must be a dork. So they'll come after the dork. They'll never come after the dog, which is good. I don't want them to. The computer is slightly warm underneath, so I don't know what to do about it. It has these air vents underneath, and so I think there's a reason why it has these feet. It should actually be standing on a smooth surface. I gotta figure something out about this. I have this now on a tin header pillow. Tin header pillow that's a pillow, cheap pillow, that I wrapped with that mylar and duct taped, and then I wrapped that with a plastic tarp and duct taped that too to protect the mylar underneath, and then I put a regular pillowcase over it. But then this computer might heat up if I have this on there, so I wonder if that's what happened to my other computer, because I think my other computer would heat up and then the video freezes, and video streaming freezes. So I think I never thought about that before, so now I don't want anything to happen to this amazing computer. I love this computer so much. This is so incredibly nice. I'm gonna have to, I'm gonna have to get a tray or something. Some kind of tray. And then I'm gonna have to put the tray on top of this pillow and then put the computer on top of the tray so that there is air breathing underneath. So I think that's what I have to do. Yeah, I gotta figure it out. So for right now I'm holding this like that. So, but Saint Nikolaus, okay, is part Pleiadian. Okay, they're very kind-hearted. Very, very kind-hearted. And of course they also have evolved. The Neanderthals have evolved in the colder regions to look after each other. You know, to be Santa Claus. And where does the name Santa is the nickname, and it comes from saint. Santa comes from the word Santa, actually means saint. Santa means holy, means good, kind-hearted, good Samaritan. Santa is holy. I'm discovering linguistics as I go, actually. Because once you get into the rabbit hole of linguistics, you don't come out of there anymore. I mean, that just goes further and further and further into discovery. Because Sanskrit in India, and there was another spaceship that landed in India, and they were blue. Believe it or not. Blue, I think, probably I have seen those depicted by people. They're Andromedan, I think. The blue Andromedans. The blue Andromedans. They look pretty much like us, but blue skin. Okay. With a bigger brain, but not as big as the Arcturians. So the Arcturians have an extremely large brain. So I don't know if the Arcturians have landed here on Earth. I don't think so. But the Andromedans have. And they have landed in India. And that's where the blue god comes from. I'm not kidding. That's where Krishna is coming from. Krishna was an ET astronaut with blue skin. And Vishnu. So Krishna and Vishnu, and I don't know whether they're the same person or the same or different people at different timelines evolved, and I don't know. I don't know 100% all of this. I thought Krishna is the same soul as Vishnu, but maybe they are, maybe not. But they're blue because they're Andromedans. They came there and they are blue ETs. Okay, and people just painted it. They didn't just make that up. They didn't just paint them blue because they wanted to. They were blue. Okay, so they painted them. And all kinds of things were painted throughout the years. People with scale skin, hybrid scale skin. It's all there. It's all there in the artifacts. You can all see it. It's not just imagination of people. They painted what they saw. Okay. There used to be ape humans with a protruded jaw. They were there. Those were the originals that evolved here on Earth. before the Garden Eden. Then the Pleiadians did, and the other ones, they did the gene splicing, and then hybrids would come out of it. They wanted to create hybrids that they could actually mate with. That was the whole plan. Hybrid and ET enough to be able to mate with them, naturally mate with them, and have offspring. And all of that was tricky business because they don't know the consequences of all of that. There could be the hybrids of those could suddenly be different, or they could be cripples, or they could be giants, and that actually happened. So the children of the hybrids that mated with the ape human, then the outcome from them was they were giants. They were not as smart, and they were extremely large. All of a sudden, they were like 10 times larger than the other ones. So something happened there where the pituitary glands didn't turn off the growth hormones or something. I don't know. Something went on. Or it was genetic. Some kind of genetic glitch. But hybrids came out of those that were giants. But then they used those, of course. That's what they would always do. They will use those as slaves. They'd use giants as slaves. So sad, all of that. And the giants would allow that? Why would they allow that? If you are 10 times bigger than your CEO, would you still take his orders? I mean, why would you do that? I wouldn't. I would take him in my left hand and place him into my Barbie doll house. And tell him he can stay there. I don't need his commands. I wonder if some giants did that with their bosses, or with the ET bosses or something. I don't know. But yeah, they probably even had to use heightened technology to even have the upper hand over the giants. I mean, the history here on Earth is so incredibly convoluted and wild that no one can even make this stuff up in a story. You can't even create this as an artist, that kind of stuff that happened here. The kind of animals that have evolved. Can an artist honestly create a rhinoceros animal? Do you even get the idea to create something, even if you're an abstract modern artist? Can you even get the idea of creating a shape like this with a humongous horn coming out the top of the head, the top of the nose, right? Or there were dinosaurs that looked like that too. They were not related to the rhinoceros. That evolved before this shape. Okay, so this shape evolves also on other planets. So it must have some kind of advantage, some kind of evolutionary advantage. They can ward off enemies. They can ward off predators with that gigantic nose horn. And then what do some people do? These horrible psychopaths. They will murder those, they will tranquilize these poor beings, and then they cut the horn off and let that animal bleed there to death. When they come back out of the anesthesia and they're in terrible pain and their horn is cut off and they're bleeding to death. What a horror. What a horror. Okay. So that has to be ended, this exploitation. That has to be ended. Unbelievable exploitation. These animals are sacred. These animals are modern art. The modern art of evolution. Leave these animals alone. Okay? So, what else did I want to talk about? Yeah, they evolved kind-hearted at the poles because they evolved kind-hearted at the Arctic because they had to help each other, and that's how Saint Nikolaus came into existence. He evolved like that. Long time ago, this figure, like Middle Ages, there was this probably maybe a Benedictine monk, could also have been just a regular person with a reindeer coat and pants. That's what they were wearing at that time there, because they had to protect themselves from the cold, and they also cultivated these reindeer. They bred them already for thousands of years, I think. And it's cruel that, of course, that they butchered some of those reindeer. They ate their meat. They made clothes, or they made protective skins out of that for themselves, so that they wouldn't freeze when they're outdoors. So all of that was part of their evolution. That was part of their life. We don't need to do this anymore today. There's no need to do this anymore today. So we can create something out of vegan materials, out of plant materials, out of synthetic materials. This here is synthetic. You don't need to butcher anyone to create a fur. So that's the beauty of the modern era. Okay, so but there are people that still do it, and they should face the consequences for that. That should not be tolerated anymore. But in the Middle Ages, they didn't have anything else. They didn't drill. They didn't have oil drilling technology. They didn't have plastic creating technology. Okay, so that was a very rough time here on Earth. People were dying all the time from cold, from the elements. They had to do some things. They had to do things to protect themselves. That's evolution. And I don't hold that against them. So Saint Nikolaus just trying to do the best he could, right? I'm sure that he would never be extra cruel to any living being. They just had to do what they had to do. They had to survive. It was very rough. So, and they had to help each other. They had to protect the animals also from the cold, and they had to protect each other. They had to bring goods to the next door neighbors that would be far away from each other. They were sparsely populated. And Saint Nikolaus, the Holy Nikolaus, Santa, meaning holy, and holy probably has to do with Pleiadians that are very, very kind-hearted. And so I'm just trying to connect the dots with this. But Neanderthals, they also evolved in the north in a kind-hearted way because they had to protect each other. So, and then they got mixed in with the ETs, and maybe the Neanderthals were already hybrids from the ETs. So maybe it seems like that is probably the case. It feels like it is the case. So there were people before the Neanderthals that had a much more ape-like face. They had a face that was more like a chimpanzee, and they were also walking upright, like Lucy, someone like that, long time ago, very long, several millions of years ago, and then maybe the ETs came a million or 2 years ago, 2 million, 3 million, 4 million years ago. They found these ape people that were already walking upright, but they weren't very smart. They didn't have a large brain, and they had a very protruded mouth, more like a dog, and they did a Garden Eden project, and the gene splicing so that they can create a hybrid in vitro and implant that into an ape mother, and then the outcome was the Neanderthal. I think that's what happened. So it dates way further back, actually. The outcome was the Neanderthal. The Neanderthals were actually ape-ET hybrids. That's what I think. I mean, that makes the most sense to me. That's what I think. And maybe these original apes with the protruded muzzle, maybe they didn't even live. They may not have lived in the Arctic Circle. They may not have migrated that far. They may have actually stayed in the warmer regions. And then the ETs that come from a cold planet and that are used to coldness, and also probably choosing that place for security too, setting up camp there with their spaceship for security, to protect themselves, to be far away from the ones that from the more populated regions. So that's also, that's another reason. So I'm just trying to understand this. And they may have taken some of these apes and brought them with them to the Arctic Circle, or they have done the Garden Eden project further south, and then they took the hybrids with them to the Arctic Circle. That could be too. So that makes sense, all of this, how this evolved. But they evolved, and they got gene spliced. They mixed in with kind-hearted Pleiadians in the Arctic Circle. And these Neanderthals, the European Neanderthals that are the hybrids from the Pleiadians and the apes, taller apes like Lucy, those Neanderthals were kind-hearted because they inherited that kind-heartedness from the Pleiadians, okay? And because they were so kind-hearted, they were just too kind-hearted to even fight off the Cro-Magnon when these kind-hearted ones migrated further down. So, and had offspring, and then there was a gradual migration process. Again, also evolutionary migration process where they don't even have to be walking very far, right? They just depopulate, and one moves further away from the other, and then the next one moves further away from the other, and so that's how it's a migration process through population. And at some point they end up in the south of France, where they encounter the Cro-Magnon that have migrated and walked and evolved from the equatorial regions towards north. So one comes from the north towards south, one comes from the south towards north, and at some point they meet each other, and then they don't trust each other, and that's very sad, and I think the Neanderthal were probably very, very giving and very nice, and the other ones were not. The other ones were hostile. So very tragic, all of this. But the Saint Nikolaus, that was the holy Nikolaus. That's where Klaus comes from. The name Klaus, Santa Claus is the nickname. Okay, from Saint Nikolaus, Santa Nikolaus, and that was a Pleiadian hybrid, mixed Nordic, right? So very Nordic with Neanderthal, lots of Neanderthal and Pleiadian in them. And so, yeah, good person, kind-hearted person that brought everyone presents, and had the reindeers pulling the sled, and I think that's wrong. So this is my personal opinion on this. Reindeers should never be used to work. Okay, they should be left there, left by themselves in the wild. Okay, they don't need to pull sleds. They shouldn't have to pull sleds. People have motorized sleds now. They don't need reindeer for that. They can get a Tesla sled, right? They can get an electric sled. So please leave the reindeers alone. Leave the animals alone. Don't do animal exploitation anymore. So don't eat the reindeers. Don't use them for anything. That they did that during the Middle Ages, up to the Middle Ages and farther even. So probably it's still some people that use it. It's not good. That needs to be banned worldwide. It should not be legal to use animals for anything, or horses. Okay, leave the animals alone. You can make friends with them, but the animals have to be free. They have to be free, and they have to be protected. They have to be in sanctuaries where they have a good life. They have to be catered to. Animals need to be catered to. Okay? Not used for something. The dog sled races need to be banned immediately, as fast as possible. The Iditarod, Arctic dog sled races need to be outlawed. Dogs are getting raw wounds under their paws from being overworked. They collapse. Some of them died. That's unacceptable. End it now. Okay, so we can do better than that. Okay, we can do a whole lot better. We need to educate ourselves about history, never stop asking questions, and empower yourself. Don't be a slave to anyone. Don't enslave anyone else. Don't enslave another living being. Don't enslave your children. Don't enslave anything, anyone. Don't do mining where you pollute the environment. Okay? Let's live in harmony with this planet and all beings. Peace and love.